All right, guys, I'm back with another one. This is another one that I've done previously, but I'm doing a new version of it because not only have I made some small minor changes on the internals, but I now am offering a resin version. So I'm going to reshoot the build video with the small minor changes and also to kind of show off the resin versions. This is going to be for the Peacemaker. And this goes for any of the barrel lengths, whichever version of the grip that you choose and stuff. So let's go ahead and get started on it. We're going to flip over here. Let me grab the little kit first. Let me grab my glasses here and we'll go ahead and get this open. Okay. So first off, we have our barrel, we have our grip, we have our cylinder, and we have our frame. We do have 6 bullets. Whether it's the FDM kit or the resin kit, they all come with resin bullets now, just because they're easier to, paint. Especially whenever you're doing up a bunch of them, it's much easier to paint and deal with. Excuse me a second. All right. So here is our trigger guard. Here is our ejection tube. This is the rod for inside the ejection tube. This is our frame, our rear grip frame. This is the load lever, or the load door, I should say, that ends up going on right here. And we'll get to that. Here's our hammer, our orange tip. Let me just dump all this out instead of going into this noisy bag one at a time. We have a bag here that's got 2 small magnets in it. That's going to be for the load door that I just showed you. On the resin version of the kit, there are still some FDM printed parts, just because the internal springs and stuff still work better in FDM, but they're all internal anyways. You'll have 2 hand springs. You'll have 2 hands, so that way if you wear them out, there's some replacements. You have 2 of the bolts, and you have now bolt springs. Now this is one of the changes where there used to be a spring that went in right here and it pressed up against the load lever. We'll go into resin because this stuff is tough and it's got flex to it to make sure that it's strong and doesn't break. That spring tension over time would push down and make a gap under the body here. Of course, if it went on this way. So what I did was I designed a new bolt, just a bolt spring, and it bolts into the original location that the bolt spring did. If I could hold on to these. But anyways, it bolts in, and normally on a real one, this one goes here and it's split. And one side works the bolt and the other side works the trigger. But I still maintain the larger spring that goes between the trigger and the hammer, just because it works perfectly fine. So we've got our little new bolt springs, or bolt. We have our indexer that goes onto the back of our cylinder. We have our firing pin that ends up going into our hammer there. Set these off, and we have our front sight that goes up on our barrel here. And we have, let me get this out. Go ahead and dump this pile out here. We have, this is our, brain's not working right now. I can't think the actual technical name. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyways, this is the rod that goes in here and actually mounts the cylinder in here. And it has the screw in it that you back out, and so you can completely still disassemble this. This is our ejection handle, which gets glued on here, and that's what slides in and out of this track right here. Cover glue real quick, you can use thick super glue. I prefer a CA glue because it's basically thick super glue that sets much slower, and you have an activator that you can spray it and it instantly starts setting. This is a brand that I've been using for a while, and I'm very thankful I'm able to carry this on my website now for you guys. I do sell it below what the normal retail is, just because that way that you guys have access to get glue at the same time you get a kit or whatever. You don't have to wonder about what glue will or will not work. For assembling this, we are going to need some type of lubricant, and don't use a petroleum-based lubricant. Use a PTFE lubricant. You can go to like a car part store or places like that and pick some up. Don't get the dry spray lubricant because of course it doesn't last that long. But if you use petroleum-based, it will not only agitate your paint, but it can have a tendency to agitate the FDM filament or even the resin. PTFE is it's easy to get a hold of. This is a lubricant I have just because this is what I clean and relube my linear rails on all my 3D printers with. So I'll wipe them down dry, clean out the blocks, clean them dry, relubricate them with PTFE. It lasts forever, but I have to do it because of dirt and dust buildup that will attach to it. But you'll see we only need like a drop, literally a drop for literally one location, well, a couple locations on this kit. And just go over the screws here real quick. We have, here, let me put them in my hand because that tends to be the best way for me to show you guys. Okay. See if I can demonstrate this. All right, if you look, you've got these first 5 are the same length, and then you have one that's just slightly longer than the rest of them, okay? These 5 are going to be what attaches our frame, the rear grip frame to the back of the actual frame. It will also be one that goes into the bottom here, and two of them that go into the trigger guard here. So, and then these other 2 long ones that are the same diameter thread as these, this will be your bolt and your trigger screw. So I'm going to set these off to the side, kind of separated somewhat. Okay, so then you have a set screw, and this isn't a screw with the head missing. I do have some people ask me that, and I understand there's a lot of people that haven't actually dealt with set screws, but it's a screw with an opening in it that allows for an Allen wrench, and it's going to take a 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench to put this in. I have one of these little driver sets over here, and I probably can't find the right size. Actually, did I find? I did. Look at that. It even says 1.5 on the side. But anyways, you'll need that. And this actually screws up into the bottom of the frame, and it is what goes up and just catches the load door. You don't tighten this down on this and break this. You just come up to where it barely touches it and you'll back it off. That allows this to swing, but it doesn't allow the load door to come out of the body. So that's what that's for. We have a dowel pin, and that will go in our hammer. We have a new added Allen head screw, and some of y'all be like, well, that's not correct to the period. It doesn't matter because that is the screw that will screw in our new bolt spring, and that's all hidden inside anyways. And as most of y'all know, I hate flat blade screws, so anytime I have a chance not to use a flat blade screw, I'll do that. We have a counter well, hang on real quick. These over here that I showed you, the one that was solo is what goes in our ejector tube and screws it to the barrel. I forgot to cover that. The biggest screw, the fattest one, is going to be your hammer screw. And let's see here, my brain's trying to work for a second. Okay. Then you have two different screws here that's left. You have one that has a 45-degree bottom, a countersunk screw or oval screw, and one that doesn't. The one that's not is what ends up getting screwed into the frame right here. And that ultimately protrudes up through the frame and will catch this in this groove right here. And again, you don't want to tighten this down. You're not trying to like just tighten the piss out of this. This goes in just to hold this rod from going in and out, just like on the real one. Okay, so then what we're going to do is, oh, let me go over the springs real quick. All right, so you've got 4 of the same length screws, okay, or springs. 3 of these springs go inside the ejector tube, and the other one is going to be for your trigger to your hammer. So what we can do real quick is we can take, I'll go ahead and we'll go over this. If you look at your barrel, there's a flat on your barrel here, okay? It's round all the way around, but it's flat right there. There's a flat right here in your frame. So if you were to put that there and press, that goes in, that's flush on there, you can pull this back out. Just don't hold it back here and pull, like hold it here and pull, because you know that's a lot of tension that you're going to put on there. But so what we can go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and just get started on where do we want to start? The easiest thing to do. Let's put the internals together. It's not the easiest thing to do, but let's go ahead and get that out of the way. So what we're going to do, first we're going to get our hammer, and we're going to go ahead and put our firing pin into our hammer just so that that's done and over with. We don't want to try to do that after we mount it. So let's go ahead and get us our glue. And I'm just going to put a drop down in there. And I'm going to take my firing pin and I'm going to kind of spin it as I put it in there. That way it kind of spins around on the inside. Okay. So now, before we go any further on this, get the big screw that's going to be for your hammer. And let's put that in there. And let's make sure that we can push this through by hand. If you can't push it through by hand, and there's some compensation for changes of weather and season, even in my climate controlled print room out there, what you can do is you can screw this in and screw it till it bottoms out, and then keep screwing it and let the threads clean the hole out. And then after you do that a couple times, back it out, blow out the dust, screw it back in, do the same thing until you get it nice and clear. And then even though mine's nice and clear, I'm going to work this back and forth a few times, because what we're looking for is like, we want this to fall over, because this is this screw, the lubricant that we're going to use, this is the main hole in the main reason, because this needs to be a nice, perfect fit. So that's one reason I can't just increase the tolerances to compensate for all different weather temperatures, because filament and resin print slightly different. So that's one of the things that, you know, when you're going through this and you're learning how to do this, you need to research and do some testing on different temperatures around your printer, higher, lower, different humidity levels, and factor in what your variation is, and then average it out. And that middle point is where you want to hit. So sometimes during the year, some things need to be like gapped a little bit more. Sometimes during the rest of the year, the gap fits perfect. So we're going to go through And like I said, we're just wanting a, decent sliding, point on there. So what we're going to do now is our dowel pin. There's a hole right here in the hammer. If you take this dowel pin and you go to push it in, it's probably a tight fit. You can put it face down and support it from back here and just kind of give it a little push. Now you'll notice you can actually through this resin see it come to the back there. You don't want to push super hard and try to push it through the back of the resin because this doesn't go all the way in. It just sticks out a bit. So what we're going to want to do is we want to get one of our hand springs and our hand and our handspring. And if you notice, it's slight curve here and it's more curved in the back. That more curve will end up ultimately, we're going to glue it together just like that. But when we glue it together, we want to make sure that these two are in alignment, that they're not cocked off, you don't cock it off to the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some glue right here, set this spring down on here, even with my shaky coffee-induced hands. Put it together and then kind of squeeze it from the sides. And if you do that, it's going to line it up. So I'm going to take this. And no, I don't have Parkinson's. There's some rude ass people in this world that I literally work 7 days a week. And if I eat sugar or drink coffee, my hands shake. That's just all there is to it. When I don't, they don't. And I have some people that just leave some just rude, stupid comments, but whatever. It's the internet. The world is rude in most ways. But there we go. So I got this together. It's all nice and lined up and flat. You can tell, if it's flat, you can lay it on the table and make sure one side's not sticking up. All right. So next thing we want to do is we want to there's a hole in the hand. We want to slide that on. Now that is kind of a tight fit. Don't really want it that tight because the thing is all of this has to articulate and rotate together. So what you can do is you can take this and kind of look down in there, and there's really not anything down in there. It's just one of those things. It's kind of a tight fit. You can kind of take your, if you have like one of these little PVC pipe cleaners, you can just kind of stick it in there and kind of rotate it around. And you can stick it back on there. And so that pretty much cleaned that out. But what you can also do is grab your lubricant and you can just put these tiniest, smallest little amount, not like me, because I didn't do a tiny, small little amount. I'll wipe most of that off. And that's the other thing about the PTFE lube is it's not harsh on your paint. So there. Now that's all nice and just nice and fluid and smooth. So what we're looking to do here is if you look on the bottom, there's a channel on this side. That channel is where we're going to kind of push that spring and that hand together just a little bit. We don't want to push on this really hard because this never gets pushed all the way down, so we don't want to overflex that. So we're just going to put that in there and we're going to slide the hammer right up into the body, and you can look down in this hole and see when you have that aligned. And we need the bigger screw, but what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take this and I'm going to say the word drop, small drop, and that's what I'm going to try to put down in there. And yeah, it's kind of a small drop. Like I said, it's not a lot that you need. But these are areas that over time, as you don't use this prop or do anything, that as they set and they dry out, the lubricant helps prevent like any over dragging in your hammer and trigger and bolt and all that stuff not working. So then we're just going to screw this in and see if you miss the hammer, it starts spreading the body. So just back off, move it around just a little bit. And there we go. So now we're going through, and I'm going to support the body from this side. We don't have to squeeze this together, but what we want to do is when this screw makes it, that's why I hate flat blade screws right there. When this screw makes it to the other side, See, my paint job would have been screwed up and I'd been so pissed. I'm just not a fan of flat blade screws. I want to hold this side so that when the screw reaches it, it starts digging in and cutting threads immediately. Not that it pushes, that the screw is what's holding the tension and eventually starts cutting. I just want to make sure that my tension from the screwdriver is transferred directly to this side. And just like the FDM prints, the resin, it cuts threads in it so beautifully, and you don't want to over tighten it. Then we want to check this and see, I done ran lubricant all the way down. And I didn't in my first original video suggest, excuse me, it like really putting lubricant in here. But over the years, as I've messed around with mine, I've noticed just as things set that it has a tendency to create drag in here. So with the lubricant in there, we don't have to worry about that. So now you see, when you operate this, the hand shoots forward. And that hand coming forward is what grabs the indexer and turns this like it should. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the bolt, the new bolt spring. So we need the only Allen head screw in the whole set. And what we want to do, let me grab this to point to you guys. If you notice, there's a gap on this side and there's this notch down here on the hammer. What we want to do is we want to drop this in to where that arm goes below that notch. So see, it just sets in there like that. We want to get, these are the two screws right here. One's hammer, one's bolt. So we'll get these two screws and we will push this into the body, push that through the bolt. It kind of lines itself up because the bolt sets into this, notch here. And this is really too big of a flat blade screwdriver because it's bigger than the opening of the hole is. But I'm just going to screw that in until it touches. We don't want to screw this till we squeeze the body. And you can always check if you're squeezing the body by setting your trigger guard on there and checking the sides and making sure that you haven't squeezed in the body, like, you've changed the profile of the body. I'm going to probably back that off just a little half a turn or a quarter of a turn. All right, so if you look at this spring, it's flat on one side, completely flat. There's a raised side with a lip. That raised side with the lip needs to face upward. So we're going to take our little Allen. I'm going to put this in here like this. I just kind of pushed it and it kind of sits in there and stays. So I'm going to take my Allen wrench here and I'm going to start screwing this in. And right before it bottoms out, or if you bottom it out, back it up a quarter of a turn. What you're going to notice is when you tighten this, it has a tendency to want to slide the spring over. We want to make sure that this spring is not touching either side. So I stopped until I got it in the center, and I'm just going to kind of squeeze with my fingers. Well, I just moved it over with my fingernail. I didn't mean to do that. Get your butt back in the center. Get over there. Go on now, get. All right, I'm going to kind of squeeze that. There we go. It's a little crooked, but it's not touching either side. That's the main thing that we're looking for. And if you're dealing with that and it happens to touch the side, you can grab you a flat blade screwdriver and just kind of push it back over a little bit. But you want to get that tight. So there, now we're straight in there. And so now we have spring tension on our bolt. What we're going to do now is we need our trigger. And we want to make sure that our screw goes through our trigger without issue. If there's a drag, like I said, just screw it in until it bottoms out and keep screwing it. And those threads will draw out and resize that hole a bit. So just like this, if we put our bolt down on this side, our hammer goes right here on this side. So when we put this hammer in, this hammer gets set down on that side. And we just have to hold our mouth just right. We have to find You can look down through the side of the body and find your opening. Maybe. There we go. Now I'm going to push that through and I'm going to try to find the hole. There we go. And just FYI, this resin, if you do need or want to sand it, it sands so beautifully. Just, you know, make sure you wear a mask just like any other time if you do any sanding. Like there's a few little nipples on the back here that I can take. And that's the other thing about this resin. Most resins that you see from resin 3D printers kind of shatter if you try to shave the edge of it or break or chip or whatever. This stuff, here, I'll actually show you in a part that won't be seen. This stuff, when you go to do it, see, it actually cuts like regular old plastic, like kind of like ABS and stuff. And no, this is not ABS-like resin. ABS-like resin is there's nothing ABS-like about ABS resin. If any of y'all do resin printing, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was one of those kind of keywords about like, hey, my platinum credit card's better than the gold credit card. They're both credit cards, but the platinum is not better just because it's called platinum. The ABS-like is nothing. There's nothing about it that's ABS-like. It doesn't function like ABS. It doesn't impact resistance like ABS. It doesn't cut like ABS. There's nothing about it that's even ABS-like. So anyways, now that I've gone through that little rant, so we're going to take one of our springs here. We're going to stick it to the hole of the hammer. We're going to push and twist, rotate it counterclockwise. When we rotate counterclockwise and push it to against the hole, and we want to make sure that we stay at the right angle. You could do it that way. When you rotate counterclockwise, it decreases the diameter of the spring, and it allows the spring to go down into a hole that's slightly smaller than it, and that there's a reason for that. If you go clockwise, it actually will twist when it catches and increase the diameter of the spring. That's why you want to go counterclockwise. So we're going to roll that backwards, and then we're going to take this and we're just going to push it and set it into the back of our trigger right there. And that's all we're looking to do. So before we go any further, we need to get our two little magnets. And right now, I wouldn't suggest operating the hammer and all that stuff. The reason being is because if you come all the way back, it'll release the trigger and the trigger will slap forward. And some of y'all just did that, and it's no big deal. Just pull your hammer all the way back and push your trigger back where it's supposed to be. And then if you do it, just keep your finger in front of the trigger so it doesn't, you know, come flying all the way forward or anything. Excuse me. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our two little magnets, and I'm going to show you a little trick to make sure you glue your magnets in the right polarity so that they attract. I've screwed this up. So this is what I've got, the two magnets stuck together. I'm going to take a black marker and I'm going to mark on both sides of the stack of two. So if you notice, I have two magnets here. I put a mark on this side and this side. So now all you have to remember is the black side needs to go in the hole against the glue. It needs to go in first. So what I normally do with this is I'll take my magnets and stick them to a screwdriver, and I just leave them together. There's no need to take them apart. The reason I do that is because if you look right here, we need to put a magnet in this hole right here, into this hole right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a drop of glue, and I always say a drop, and it always ends up being more than that. I'm going to take a drop of glue, hold this so I can actually see it. And I got glue everywhere, but I was trying to get it down in the hole. There we go. I did get it down in the hole. We'll wipe off what's on the outside there. And this is something that you could do before you paint. Then I just take the screwdriver, put them both in there, slide that one off, slide the screwdriver off, and then slide the second one off of there. Now you can put these in, then paint. The paint covering them will not interfere with how well they work. Okay, that's down in there. I smooshed out what little glue I needed to smoosh out. So we're going to set that off to the side real quick. Now we need to put the other magnet in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my other magnet, and I want to stick it on my screwdriver with the black facing up. That way when I put this in the hole, the black is facing into the hole. See what I'm saying? And that way when you're done, you know the polarity is correct for attracting. Sorry, my nose is itching like crazy. All right, so now I'm going to take a little glob of glue. Yeah, I didn't say drop because it never ends up being a drop for me. And my coffee hands, my coffee hands. Oh crap, get that off of there. We don't want that on there. Clean. So then I'm going to take this and I'm going to stick it down in the hole, and I'm going to swipe my screwdriver off. And now we have our magnet in where it's supposed to go. And I'm going to take something and just kind of push down on it. Just make sure it's where I want it, and boom, lock it in place. Okay, so now that's done and out of the way. Let that dry for a second. We're going to need our set screw that I was talking about, and we're going to need our Allen wrench that fits it. And what we're going to do is we're going to come in here in this front hole. You have two holes that are lined across the body. We want this front hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and if you notice, it does not run into the body 45 degrees with this. It runs in parallel with this face and parallel with this face. And the reason I say that is because we don't want to start it in the hole this way. We want to start it going in like that. Do about a half a turn. Look down, make sure you're straight. Then look again, make sure you're straight. And if you're straight, go ahead and screw this in. And when you're screwing this in, screw it in with some pressure on it. Because your pressure helps as it's cutting the threads and stuff. If you just lightly do it, you do run a chance of it stripping out and not screwing in. And I'm blowing into this hole because this hole is open to this screw hole. And I'm just running this dude in here. Like I said, I'm holding pressure. I'm pushing against the screw as I'm rolling it in. Now, what we want to do is give it just a minute and let that screw cool off, because that screw just generated a lot of heat. And as it cools, those threads will form around it a lot better. But in the meantime, we want to take our door and slide our door on. And you see how like you get here and the magnet grabs it, okay? What we want to do is we want to slowly tighten this, slowly, until we feel it touch the arm that we stuck. Oh, there we go. So now I barely touched it and this doesn't move. If I back this off just a little bit. Okay, so there. Now, if I try to take this door out, see that screw is holding it in. So that screw doesn't actually touch and impact that shaft. And we want to make sure that we don't want to impact that shaft because we want it to move freely and we want it to flip over without issue. Before we get in too much further, if you assemble and you have problems like your hammer and stuff still feels like it's dragging too much, it may be that you have too much tension on your hand where it's swiveled on that dowel pin. You can always take some lubricant and drop down into the back of this slot, which is where this spring, the back of this spring rides in and out. So it is actually riding and rubbing against the inside of that channel right there. So that's just, you know, FYI in case you have issues with that or anything. All right, so where we're at now is we want to go ahead and we're going to put on our trigger guard. And our trigger guard, remember we have 5 screws over here that are the same. We're going to need 2 of those, and we need the countersunk screw, okay? So I'm going to take this and hold my mouth just right. I'm going to put that screw in there. The countersunk screw goes in the front. Find my screwdriver. Get on there. And we're going to screw this one in. And I'm not going to tighten them down yet. I just got them to where they're touching and holding. And I give this one a little twist. And go ahead and screw this in. Hang on a second. Let me put my top on my glue before I let that dry. Okay, we're going to just hold some pressure down on this right here in the center. And I'm not going to get that lined up. And we're going to tighten that. We're going to tighten this. And tighten that. So what we're going to do is we need to work this, and we have 1 click. We have another click. We have that click and then back. So you should hear, let's see. You should hear all of the unique clicks of the Peacemaker. All right. So the next thing that we can go ahead and do is we can go ahead and let's get our indexer glued into the back of our cylinder right here. It doesn't matter which way it goes in because it's set with a hex like a octagon, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, not octagon. But so it indexes it into the chamber no matter how you do it. And what I do on this is I'll go through here and I will put a little bit of glue. Don't gob this in here because you don't want it to get into the center hole. I'm just going around and putting glue right on the upper edge. Then we're going to take this dude and we're going to slide this in there and set it. And I'm going to hit it with some activator. We're going to give that a minute or two to dry off. And that's the thing, the activator, I haven't found any paint that the activator actually causes issue with. So now what we want to do before we put all this together is we want to slide this in and make sure that this rod slides through without dragging. On the FDM kit, if it happens to drag a little bit, one thing that I will do is I will take this longer rod that's for the ejector and put it in a drill and use this rod and spin it in a drill and go in and out, and then blow it out to make sure that it's nice and clear, that you don't have to fight with anything. So while that's finishing setting up, we're going to take our rod here and we're going to, what am I talking about? We're going to take this piece and we need to glue our rod into here. And again, always try to put the glue in the hole, because if you put glue on the outside of the shaft, as you slide it together, it's going to wipe it out. If you try to get it down in the hole and then spin this as you go in, it's going to smear the glue down into the hole instead of it smearing outward. Now what I'll do is, I'll put a nice little glob right there on top and then kind of just wipe it. Now I'm going to take my rod, I'm going to spin it as I go in, and then I'm going to hit it with the activator. Make sure you don't have any that's piled up there trying to come out. That's going to interfere once it's dried. So now this is dried. What we want to test is we have to flip our door open. We want to set our cylinder down in there, and we have to rotate. We need to cock this back to the first cock. And when we do that, it starts pulling the bolt down, and it moves the hand into a different position. You have to cock it back. If you try to force it, you're gonna screw your stuff up. So what we do is we kind of wiggle this around, because there's a hole back here in the back. There we go. There we go. Okay. If you find that it drags kind of hard on your rod, you can always pull your rod out and put you just a little lubricant on here and slide your rod back in. And thing is, it gets that point and then it has to line up and go into a hole in the back of the body, which I'll show you that real quick. See, there's a hole right there. When you're putting this rod in, that rod ends up having to hit that hole and go in there. So we cock our hammer back. One too many. We just go to there, take our cylinder, and put our cylinder in, kind of wiggle it around a bit, and we're in. So now we need this last small screw that's just a flat blade, and we're going to put it in here. And don't get crazy with tightening this down, because like I said, we're just trying to barely touch this rod, and this is what keeps this rod from falling out. So we just want to go nice and slow. And what I'll do is I stop basically right when it gets flush with the body. And if you try to pull this rod out and you can still move it a bit, go take it and go in a couple, like maybe another half a turn. And now see, I can't take that out. So now, it's beautiful. Okay, so let's go ahead and put our grip together. So what we're going to need is we need our grip and our rear grip frame. We're just going to set our grip on here, just like that. Just like that. We're going to take, if you notice there's a notch, a square in there, and there's a square on here. We just take this like this and pop this up. And this is, it's all going to go over, and when we tighten all the screws down, it ultimately tightens and holds the grip in place. So now we need these last 3 screws right here. We're going to take one and we're going to put right there and put right there. And we'll take our little screwdriver. And hold our tongue just right and keep tightening. Keep tightening. Keep tightening. And I'm not going to tighten it too tight yet. I just run it up until it kind of bottoms out by pulling it up against the frame. I'm going to run this up. What you want to make sure is that you have this centered and that it's not rubbing on your hammer on either side. So I'm going to keep going. And before I tighten those all the way down, I'm going to come back here and see that's setting exactly where it needs to be. I'm going to take this screw. And I've had some people ask about, you know, why are the resin kits more expensive than the FDM? The best, clearest answer on that, and it's not even really because it takes me a lot longer to produce them or it's a much bigger mess or any of that stuff. It really boils down to the fact that this specially formulated resin that I worked with the company on making is freaking expensive. So just to give you an answer, like a comparison, say your normal average 1 kilo of filament retail, say it's around 23, 24 bucks. Retail version of this resin would be about $65 in equivalent like kilo of resin. Even buying in bulk, it doesn't get it gets the price down some. But in the resin world, when they want you to buy in bulk and get the price way down, they're talking about bulk. Like order you a 55-gallon barrel, which is thousands of dollars. And I just ain't there. But so really it's material cost more than anything. There is a lot more to clean up and prep and get these ready for you guys. But that's just kind of one of those things that I mean, I like to do. I like to build these kits and make these kits and stuff. So, so there we go. All that is operating. So we pull back one notch. That would be to get our cylinder in and out. Our next notch, that would be to line up every one of our clicks to replace our shells. Close it down. So there's all of our wonderful working internals. All right. So now we're going to address the ejection rod. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to glue our little handle onto here. So I'm going to get a pretty good amount of glue down in this hole because this is one of these connections that we want that to make sure it's really, really good. And put a little bit more than that. I can always wipe off. And again, you can put this rod on before you paint. I'm going to take this, I'm going to twist it really, really good back and forth and all around. And I want to hold some pressure on it because, you know, I want to make sure this is straight. Ah, I sprayed the top of my glue. That means all the glue on the top of my bottle just, I may have to forcibly open that in a minute. So this is what we're looking for. Now this guy here, you'll take it and it kind of is a little tight fit and then you turn it. And now we're in here like this. All right. So on this, we want to put some lubricant down inside this. Because whether it's FDM, but especially the resin is so smooth. You put two really smooth surfaces together, you get a lot of friction. On the FDM, you have print lines going this way, which are the opposite direction of the print lines on this. So they kind of work together to slide real well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of lube. I'm going to drop down in there. I don't want a bunch, but I'm trying to make sure that I get this channel lubricated in here. So, oops. I'm going to put that way, turn it. And I need to move this back and forth. And part of the other thing is too, so we got lubricant down on this back side. We need to make sure that we get lubricant on the top side. And as you're moving it back and forth, you can still kind of feel, you know, some drag to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some lubricant and put right on top of this right here, so that it'll run down both sides. And not a bunch. Well, like I said, after you paint, and that's the good thing about the PTFE lubricant is it should not agitate your paint at all. All right. So I'm going to take a spring. Hold my mouth just right. I'm going to take another spring. Hold my mouth just right. And another spring. So now we have all our springs in there. That's feels good. Okay, so wipe all that off my hands. What I want to do is I'm going to take my barrel, find the flat spot again, Flat spots on the bottom of the frame, flat spots on there. Now you can ultimately glue your barrel in. That's perfect. That's perfectly fine. It's a nice snug little fit. So now on the FDM one, you'll want to glue your barrel in. On the resin one, it's pretty damn tight. You can glue it in. I'm not going to glue this one in yet because I'm going to take this one back apart and paint this one. So I'm going to, so now you see there's a hole right here. That's where you want to set all of this. And this gets laid against the barrel just like that. Now, here's what you have to remember. There's not a lot of meat on the bone right here for this screw to thread into. So if you take this if you take it apart back and forth a few times, you'll have a tendency to run the threads in there. It's not that big of a deal because basically once this is back together, what you can actually do is, here, you can end up gluing your ejection tube onto the side of your barrel so that you don't have to worry about the force on that right there. But I'm not going to do that because I want to paint mine. So I'm going to turn this, set it down in there, and I'm just going to hold against the barrel right there. And remember, there's not a lot of meat on the bone here, so don't, like when you get down there, don't expect like these other screws that it's going to tighten down and be like, yeah, I can crank on it. Because, you know, you're pulling against what few threads are there. And it's just like the real one. There's not much threads on that little raised part on the side of the barrel. So you get to a point, all of a sudden it just stops. So now that's in there. So if we come back to the second spot, so that it's lined up for this ejection tube, we can go through and operate this. And if you haven't lubed this up enough, if you try to do it with one finger, it's going to drag like crazy. So you might have to, you know, two finger it. But if it's lubricated correctly, it's going to move nice and smooth in there. And if you notice, when I do this, it comes out the back side to eject the bullets out. And speaking of bullets, we're going to go ahead and lay that down for a second. And we're going to bring the bullets over here. I'm not going to glue all these together. I'm going to glue together one, and you just repeat 5 more times. And the reason is because I'm going to paint these. And these are separate just like on the FDM. But if you notice, it's just like they're glassy smooth. So I can stick this on my rod, take my airbrush and spin this and hit this with a nice metallic brass paint, and then hit this with a nice lead color paint, and then glue those bad boys together, and there you go. That's one of the things is the resin kits may be a little bit more expensive, but the thing you're gaining is the massive reduction in prep work to get to the stage of glassy smooth and ready to paint. And like I said, it took quite a bit of time of researching and buying a lot of different brands to figure out a good resin to be handled, to be, you know, dropped. I mean, of course I can't sit there and say you can't break this if you drop it. You can't break a little part off or something. Anything can be broken, but this stuff is so stinking tough. Let me see. Get all this out of the way. Sorry. All right. So I did one bullet. Make sure that it's nice and dry and put it in there. And then you could click around to go to your next bullet, next, just like that. And now if that had been fired and that was missing, bam. So now you have all your bullets. You can load it in there and you can cock it back. So you got your first, which is your safety spot. You go to your second click, which releases this, and you get, oh, yeah, yeah. You get that beautiful clicking for rotating. So, and then, oh, you know what? We forgot to put the front sight on. Also, hang on a second. There we go. We forgot to put the sight on the barrel. Sorry about that. Hang on. So the sight, I don't want to glue mine on yet. Forgive me, because I want to paint this separate, so when I put this together that there's a nice seam line there, and I don't, you know, when you paint, you don't want like to get paint built up in there. So I'm not going to glue this on yet. Let me double check the position of the sight forward to back, because, and I want to make sure that I do this, because there's sometimes a tendency for things not to always go together the way you automatically assume. Hang on a second. Because I've done that before in previous assembly videos, and I hate it. And okay, and that's what I figured is you put the slope forward, and the reason this slope goes forward is it aided in going in and out of holsters. But before I said that to you, I wanted to double check. That aided in the ability of like it hitting the leather and it sliding in. And the taller the notch, the more tendency it had to do a little hit instead of gliding in nice and smooth. So this is how you're going to put it on your barrel. So that's what it would look like. Now also, please, once you are done with your paint job and your assembly, make sure that you glue your orange tip on. That's all I'm going to say about it. The federal law here requires it. I don't know about the laws in your country. I don't know all the laws, but I know that it's required here. Most Comic-Cons require you to put them on. I'm not going to do mine yet because I am painting this one. Then I will be putting mine on. Also, like the weight, it's a little bit heavier than the FDM print. But, you know, overall, it's, you know, it's such a beautiful build. Such a cool gun. So freaking cool. But yeah, you got your magnetic door, slams shut. And there it is. So if you guys have any questions or comments or wishes, hopes, dreams, or ideas about things, just let me know. Leave me a comment below. Go to the website, TreywickDesigns.com, and, you know, shoot me a message there. And again, you know, you've got your extra replacement springs for the inside if you wear them out, and all that good stuff. So, but I appreciate you guys. God bless and have a great day.